Nothing is working right. And just to prove the point, nothing is working right today. I would not be surprised if that happens again. Can I get a 5x5, please? How are you this morning, everybody? Hope you are all doing well this Sunday morning. We need to hurry, get this in as quick as possible. Apparently, Christy is about to fall back to sleep. Thank you, Stanford Truth. I appreciate you. Valerie, good to see you. It is early in the morning, people. So if you're listening and you're getting ready to fall back to sleep, that's not such a bad thing. All right. Leave on Stretch Claw. Good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to Sunday Morning Boat. Hey, Kat Kaplan. Good to see you. Glad that you are here as well. So this one sucks. This is a show that would be a lot of fun if we didn't have to do, right? Balake, the inappropriate heifer. Funny. Whoa, people are flying by. Pet Freak, Peggy Dooley. You know what? Everybody here is still dealing with loss. Bruce Osmond, good day. And a hello to you. You know what? I had a thought. Don't remember what it was, but I had a thought. It was fleeting. Came in, came out. Happens a lot, especially this time of the day. Not really enough Joe yet. A little coffee to fuel up the old dome piece. Good Lord. Kat Kaplan says, I'm dealing with the loss of both of my parents in the past few months. I'm so sorry to hear that. Michelle Smokes, good to see you. I'm truthfully so sorry to hear that. The loss of a parent is so tough, and the loss of two, back to back. I can't imagine. I lost my dad at losing both of them at the same time. I honestly, I'm not sure how you're coping. It's not something that people get over, to be sure. When I saw what the show was about, I think this is going to be a recurring sentiment. Boy, nothing is working right. If you knew how long ago I touched that for that to work. Linda says, when I saw the show was about, I had to come. I hope you remember me, the one that lost my whole family. Linda, I am so sorry. And the loss of immediate family is the kind of the top of the food chain, right? Whether it's a mother, a father, or a worst case scenario, a child. But losing a loved one is really the top of the food chain. We talk about dealing with loss is just like anything else. We talk about dealing with things in our life in terms of the stress that they put on your body, the stress that they put on your psyche and your soul. And sadly, loss, especially the loss of a loved one, taxes us more than anything. And the loss can be anything. It really can. It could be the loss of a significant other, whether that loss be to tragedy or to divorce, right? To someone just saying after X number of years, I just don't want to do this anymore. And a lot of us here, in fact, the vast majority of us here have been through horrendous divorces, or some of the hardest breakups in the world may have nothing to do with marriage. There may just be somebody that you were with who you fell in love with that then sort of handed you your heart. That's a terribly real thing as well. And I know for a fact that there are people on the boat that are going through that. Cosmic Christie says, I haven't dealt with loss. I can't say what happened because of, but I will never deal. Oh, my word. You know what, Cosmic Christie? I feel so stupid when people put up abbreviations that I know I probably ought to know what they mean. I have no idea what TW means. I'm trying to think of it because of, yeah, I have no idea what TW means. I'm sorry. I wish I did, because I think it's probably super relevant to finishing off this thought. You have to deal with loss, Cosmic Christie. You have to deal with loss. This is not something that is a choice. Linda, I think that in many ways you're probably right. No one is ever going to understand what you could possibly be going through and how hard it is to get up every day. There's nobody. There's nobody. In terms of the just what I'm talking about, the scale, right? In a loss situation, for me, in terms of loss, things that I took to pawn shops, that were heirlooms, things that meant things that had incredible significance to family and things like that, that I just took in and borrowed money against, usually 10% of value, if not less. But I would borrow that cash and then obviously never go in and make payments or do anything else. That kind of loss, that's a one, right? Pawning a heirloom that you don't get back, that's loss. It's painful, right? But it's a one or a two. What Linda's talking about is a 10. The loss of a family member is high up on that scale. This kind of loss, that's the we're not keeping score. But if we were, this is a person who's in the lead. But you know what, Linda, no one's ever going to know what you're going through. But trust and believe that if there's somebody here that lost just one person, they got a pretty good idea of what it feels like. They can say, my God, what I'm going through multiplied by 3, or what I'm going through multiplied by 10. And I think this is an important thing, Linda, because if you don't realize that everybody here does have some kind of an idea what you're going through, then you're going to miss out on a lot of what this is. Because what this is everybody here is dealing with loss. Everybody at all times. It's the nature of life. I saw another comment went by earlier that said, I really haven't had any loss. Of course you have. There's nobody here that doesn't have loss. There isn't. If you're the most blessed human being on planet Earth and your family all live to the ripe old age and everything else, you're still going to experience loss. There are going to be people in our lives that we love who then are gone for a whole host of reasons. There are going to be people, there are going to be places that we love that will be gone, right? And of course, you can always go back to those places, right? But you can't. And if anybody has ever lived somewhere else, you know the phenomenon of which I speak, where you go back, but you can't go back. So the question becomes, people, on that scale of 1 to 10, screw the pawn shop stuff, screw the stuff at the bottom end of the loss spectrum, but breaking up with somebody dying, the top of the food chain stuff, the stuff that's in the 5 through 10 in terms of suffering. You need to start thinking in terms of getting through this and dealing with it and coping with it. And if you say it's too painful, it's not something I can cope with, you're going to cope with it. If you say, I'm not going to deal with this, I'm putting it in the back of my mind, in the back of your mind, it's going like this and slapping the hell out of you in every way. It's going to mess with your sleep. It's going to mess with your diet. It's going to mess with your health. It's going to mess with your relationships. It's going to mess with every single aspect of your life if you don't deal with it. And you're not going to get over it. There's no counselor. There's no magic wand. There's nothing that is going to help you get over it. What it's going to help you do is learn to live with it and to get up every day. Right? It's the concept of the dialectic behavioral training model. Right? I just lost every single person in the world that means anything to me, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to make breakfast and I'm going to go do what I got to do. And in the beginning, it may be 2-minute snips at a time. Peggy Dooley, great comment. This is a great comment. If it'll go up, there you go. Boy, is my computer on one today. The BS statement of one day at a time is actually true. I don't want to admit it, but it is. And that's right. And you know what? When you get to one day at a time in the loss spectrum, you're winning the lottery. I promise. When you're getting to the point where you say, I just have got to get through this one day at a time, because if you're going through the kind of loss that our friend is going through, when you lose your entire family, when you're going through that kind of loss, if you can deal with it in 5-minute increments, you're trying to bite off that the suffering, because make no mistake, that's what it is. It's suffering, right? When we lose somebody, it is suffering. And when people say, people call me and they want the magic bullet, and I'll tell you something, depending on what your belief system is, right? There are people who deal with loss considerably different, depending on what it is that they believe, that loved ones are on the other side and are waiting. Sometimes that's different for someone that believes that they're never going to see this individual again. So individuals' belief systems are huge. But aside from that, because we don't do that here, right? It's not something that I teach or preach here. But you need to seek support and you need to connect. If you don't have a network, and that can be friends, family, a support group, right? So we have people online. I talk to people every day that say, I'm not going out and meeting people. I'm not the kind of person that goes to meetings. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go to a church group or anything else. I don't do that. It's not something I'm comfortable with. And whenever people say that stuff to me, I say, you're comfortable talking to me right now on a telephone, though, right? You're comfortable conversing in a chat room, or you're comfortable conversing in a, in Messenger or whatever. You all are very comfortable that way, which means you're very comfortable here, right? So this kind of interaction is actually huge. And sharing your feelings and experiences can provide emotional support during the challenging process of dealing with loss, especially in addiction, right? Coming here, people want the magic bullet. Tell me, how does this get better? Well, you damn talk about it. I'll tell you that. You come here and you talk about it. And amazingly, let me tell you something. This may not make sense to you now. In fact, I'm sure as hell sure it's not going to make sense to you right now. But the people who lose the most, pay attention. The people who lose the most benefit the most by connecting with others who have lost. If you're the top of the loss, if you've lost more than anyone else on the planet, if I were you, I would get super active in talking to people who lost less than I did. I would talk to every single person in the world who, on a scale of 1 to 10, were living in lost territory at a 6, right? They were getting up every day with stuff that you go, how in hell can this person not get by this? Right? You look down and you go, this is what your hang up in life is. Let me tell you what I just went through. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's really what is going on, right? Let's cut to the chase. When someone is stuck in one of those places where they're weeping because they have no shoes, there's something really powerful when you see someone that has no feet, right? That's something that really takes your breath away. And it sometimes can go and snap you back onto the right road. There's somebody that I know may not be awake right now, but is going to see this video, because I want to tell you something. I have a friend who has won the loss lottery. I promise you, there's nobody on planet Earth that I've ever met that has lost more than this individual. And loss comes in a million varieties. Am I right? Loss comes in a million varieties. My best friend from high school, just my homeboy, it was actually like a little trio of guys. It was me and my friend and one other. But my best friend, the guy that I was the closest with, we call Lurch, and I've known him since I don't know, 12 or something. I mean, I've known him longer than I've known anybody on earth. He's my older friend, to be sure. And he fell out of a window and broke his neck and is what they call a partial quadriplegic. And he can't, his hands don't work right, but he can move his arms, but he has no use of his legs. And we're such homeboys, right? We're such good friends that we get on the phone and we fall into a pattern of stuff, of dialogue that we've done since we were kids. And he has an incredible ability to laugh at himself, crack jokes about himself. You know, I remember one time when he lived in Nevada and I lived somewhere else. I had gone to visit him, and as he was driving me to the airport, we were super late, and I said, "Oh man, your gas light is on, right?" We were almost to the airport. I said, "Dude, I don't have any cash on me." I said, "Just take me to the gas station, and I'll throw a gas tank on my card." And he said, no. He's like, "You're going to miss the plane if we do that." I said, "Dude, how are you going to get home?" He said, "You got no cash." He said, "I'll just grab one of those casino cups." He said, "And I'll wheel this chair in front of the casino." He said, "They'll fill that cup in about 30 or 40 minutes. And I just looked at him and I remember thinking to myself, the ability to laugh at, and crack jokes about yourself and especially as close as he was to the accident. At that point, he had been in the chair 2 or 3 years. I get on the phone and we fall into that pattern, and I just start talking to him and I start complaining because he's my best friend. And it would be the same way anybody talks to any of their best friends. But I say something stupid and I think to myself, "Oh my God, what am I complaining about?" I moved to Tucson, and I had those intruders show up here. Well, I chased those intruders through the desert, and I hurt myself. The bottom of my feet were torn up. Nothing like getting on a phone with someone who can't walk to complain about, how bad the bottom of your feet hurt from running. The guy that I skied and played football with. And you think to yourself, I'm the dumbest person to say that out loud, right? But it was that reality roundup. It was that perspective meter that went on. And I start thinking to myself, the things that I piss and moan about to people who have experienced real loss is embarrassing. But being a person who experienced real loss, you know what this dude decided to do for a living? My adult life. He's to the point now where he can almost retire. Or you know what? He may have retired, I think, actually. He's got 20 in. Yeah, I think he's out. But he worked for the state. And his job was to talk to people who are putting in claims for disability. And in all honesty, they funneled people to him that they thought were scamming, that they didn't think were truly injured, but were trying to get money from the state. And he said, if you knew the number of times that people walked in and saw him, his hands are like this. He said, and people come in and see him, and he would start working the computer, and they would look at him, and they would apologize and turn and leave. He said it happened probably 50 times in his career, where somebody just walked in and went, "Oh my God, I'm a piece of crap." That's one of the things that people in amazing loss, that's an extreme example, obviously, but people who have experienced unbelievable loss can do so much for the freaking world. Think of books like, The Search for, what's the people? This is what happens when your brain begins to shut down. But the number of books written by people who went through the Holocaust, people who were tortured in those places, and some of the most unbelievable things written. Ten Boom, the author, Viktor Frankl. There are so many people who changed the world because of loss. There are so many people who took what happened to them and said, Helen Keller, thank you. All loss is real loss. You're damn right it is. Every bit of it is. But it's excellent to get a good dose of perspective from someone who has really experienced loss. There's something so humbling about being around someone that didn't just do it, but somebody that got through it. Somebody that didn't run away from it, because the majority of the world does. I'm not mad at them either. If you're somebody that ran from it, I'm not. That's what happens to the vast majority of us on this planet. If there is something really painful going on in our lives, if there's something that really hurts, we get out of Dodge mentally. Do we not? You know? And there's a lot of you going, I don't know, no, that's not really me. We drank to make those things go away. I'm here because I didn't deal with loss for 3 decades. That's so cool. Ann Mountain says, I'm doing a group at Detox this morning. I am now going to use this topic with the group to see where the trauma is. I love that. I love that. That's so cool, Ann. Honestly, that is so cool. And you know what? I like seeing yeah, that's awesome. That really makes me feel good. There is no such thing as teeny trauma. If what I was just saying gave anybody that impression, allow me to apologize. There's no such thing as small trauma, but there is such thing as massive trauma, right? There is such thing as massive loss. There's no such thing as teeny loss. There really isn't. So this is one that people and I'll tell you this story. I have to, because when we lost my dad, the number of people who sent messages to us were in the thousands, 4,000 or 5,000 messages that came in or something in the first day and a half, primarily because of my brother, right? And we tried to answer every one of those. I did. My brother at that point was not capable, but I thought it really was cathartic for me, because I thought these people took the time to do this, and it was really part of the process of me working through it. And especially in the beginning, I worked around the clock. I think I probably worked for 20 hours just together. And you know what? Every one of them, I mean, with the exception of the 1 or 2, people who are just those kind of people, everybody else was just so sweet and so nice. But I can't tell you how many people said, I know what you're going through. I lost a dog, a week ago. And the first time I read it, I thought to myself, I just lost my dad, right? You lost a dog. By the 3rd or 4th person that had written it, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm an ass. I really am. I'm an ass. Because it's not about comparing which of those is a bigger thing. What that person was saying is, hey, man, I'm hurting right now too. But I wasn't being smart enough to get that. Because when we're in the middle of grief, we are comparing our grief to everybody else's. In our head, we're going, you know what? That person doesn't know what about loss. You want to talk about loss? You don't know what loss is. When people tell me that on the phone, you know what I do? I go, okay, tell me about it. I don't know what loss is. Please, for the love of God, tell me what loss is. Because if someone's telling you that you don't know what loss is, they so badly need to tell someone what it is. They need to tell a lot of people what it is. The more people that they tell what loss is, the faster that they're going to heal from that loss. Is that making sense to everybody here? Sorry. Wow. Yeah, that's one hell of a freaking year. Martha Simmons said, I had one crappy year. My goodness. Now, see, this is what I'm talking about, right? It's a huge amount of loss. But while we're not keeping score, it's not what we're doing. But the more loss you've had, the more good you can do for the world, and the faster you're going to heal yourself, you turn around and you fight loss. The same way that you turn around and fight whatever the hell else is behind you, whatever the hell else that you're putting off and procrastinating. There's somebody that's not going to be here because they don't do the early morning show, but they lost somebody very near and dear to them. And we talked through the process when it was happening. And he said, I haven't shed a tear. I don't feel it at all. I said, well, you're going to, right? You're absolutely going to talk about it with me. Tell me what's going on, right? Let's get it out there. Talk about it, because you're going to deal with it. You may not be dealing with it right then. And there are people who say to me, was one of my favorite expressions, hey, bro, this is just how I do it. Oh, the way you do it is you put it away, right? In the closet, and then you pull the door shut as fast as you freaking can. That's the plan. And sadly, that's the plan for most of the planet. Does just that. Now, some people actually do eventually go and open that closet door. There are people who say, I can't deal with this right now. I've gotten really good at this. I've gotten really good at this through journaling and through everything else that I do in my life. There are, there's the journals that you keep on the desk, and you keep it by the side of the bed. I mean, you got these kind of little numbers, right, that you take with you. Or I don't have my cell, but I got a stylus on the bottom of my cell that I could pop out and just scribble on the phone like it's a pen, and it'll keep it for me. But through all of those processes, I've learned that I can put something away when I feel really serious pain. If somebody says something that triggers something from my past and I feel that pain, right? When you get to that point and you really start to feel like you're losing it, I might be in a room of 25 people talking. I might be talking to kids at a school. I might be doing this right now. And I might think to myself, this probably isn't the best time to work through what that just triggered. But I better work through what that's just triggered, right? I'm not going to allow that to park itself in my dome and wreak havoc for the entire day. Linda, I'm so glad you're here. I'm not kidding. I'm really glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you are being open and honest and talking about this, right? Because this, Peggy Dooley says, sometimes holding on by your fingernails is enough, Peggy, that ought to be a tattoo. It really should be. That ought to be a tattoo. It doesn't matter how you're hanging on, people. Peggy's right. If it's one finger, if it's the fingernails, if you got 1/16 of an inch and that's what you're gripping with, God bless you. Right? God bless. But Linda says, the pain is hard. I haven't touched my husband's room yet, and it's been over a year. People don't understand why I can't go in there yet. There's so much that you could unwrap in this. This is an entire show in one comment. You're right. The pain is hard, and it's unbelievably hard. It's more than I can comprehend right now because I've not gone through what you're going through. Now, I've been through some rugged stuff in my life. I know, right? There are a lot of different ways that people experience different trauma. But with loss, Linda, I'm not anywhere near what you've ever. You're going through things I have, thank the Lord, not gone through yet in my life. And I hope I never do. I hope no one ever has to. But the fact that you're here and you're opening up, I promise you, Linda, you don't know the good that you're doing for people that you're never going to meet. There are 67 people right now in the chat at 5 a.m. This is just a meeting. But before this thing is done, there will be thousands and thousands of people that will see this. Right? It's never coming down. There are going to be a lot of people that see this before it's all said and done. And your ability to open up and talk about things like this, there's going to be somebody that reads this damn comment, I promise you, and says, I haven't gone into my husband or my wife's room yet either. I just can't do it. And that connection, that little connection, when you say nobody can understand what I'm going through, there's somebody reading this right now who understands exactly what you're going through. There's somebody who says, you know what? It's been 4 years I haven't gone in there. God bless you. That's okay. Martha Simmons says, it was 8 years ago, top it off. Next year, the anniversary of my sister's death. Oh my God, Martha. Martha says, 8 years ago, to top it off, my favorite brother died the next year on the anniversary of my sister's death. I was in political office and had to keep it together. Perfect example. You gotta table the motion, right? You gotta take whatever is going on in your life currently and say, I'm gonna put this away. That's a reality, right? Guys in combat, they watch something horrific happen. They don't go, hey, we need to get a quick timeout. I need to process this. That was really difficult to look at, and it's probably going to give me nightmares for the rest of my life. Let's start trying to unpack this. They're running at the top speed, ducking as low as they can and firing guns. The veterans and the things that they go through, and they can't deal with that until they come home. It's one of the reasons it's so difficult. It's one of the reasons we lose so many of them every single day. Biggest tragedy in our country, one of, if not the biggest tragedy in our country, is how bad we take care of our veterans. But you know something? In a lot of cases, as much as they would like to help, someone has to say, I want help. And we've created a society that if you say something like that, you're weak. If you say something like that, you're broken. There's something wrong with you, right? No. Grieving is individual. Try to be kind to yourself. Will that work? Can I make that go up there? Come on. Boy, this computer is jacked today. There we go. Grieving is individual. Be kind to yourself. I love this, right? It is individual. It is. But please don't tell me that the way you grieve is to never think about it again. Never talk about it again. Pretend the person didn't pass away, that they were there on Monday and gone on Tuesday. If how you deal with that is, we're never going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it didn't happen to me, right? Or we're just going to say, nope, they're gone and I'm okay. Don't, if you're not okay, then don't say you're okay. There are going to be days that it rains, right? Spiritually, emotionally, there are going to be days it rains. I watched this with my mom. My dad was my best friend, but he wasn't my lifelong partner. So for my mom, it's got to be a completely different kind of loss, right? And it's one that I kind of understand to a different level because I've lost, individuals you think are your soulmates, right? If you believe in the soulmate concept and you meet someone that you truthfully believe is your soulmate, you lose that person. That's a kick in the teeth. It's if they're still alive, it's still loss if they're not part of your life. And I know that there are people who are dealing with that right now. And you know what? You know how many people are hearing my voice and going, what? A breakup? You're going to compare a breakup to me losing my insert whatever you lost there. Sister, brother, mother, father, son, daughter, whatever. Okay. No, I'm not comparing anybody's loss to anybody's loss. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, if your grief is a 10, right? Listen to the grief of someone who has a 7, knowing full well you got them beat. You can outgrieve this person. You can outloss this person. Your loss is 10 times worse. Listen to theirs because it's going to do something. You're not going to hurt the same way listening to their loss. You understand? It's not yours. But there are going to be things that they say that resonate in you because it is the exact same thing. Sure, there's more of it for you, and there's how you grieve is different, how the loss happened, all of those, but there's going to be an instant bond, instantly, right? That trauma bonding. When you've been through something and you share an experience with someone who's also been through something, it's incredible if you go through it together. You know, the person that, my nightmares, I've been pretty damn open about what my nightmares are about and how I got them. The guy that got killed in the special management unit, that got stomped to death. That's the recurring nightmare, right? So there's not a whole lot of I don't have to figure out with a shrink exactly what's going on in my head in terms of the dreams. I know what's going on. There's one person I probably could have had a conversation with about that. Hey, how are you dealing with this? How are you coping with it? Would have been the guy that I lived with, right? The people on either side, I can't honestly tell you that. I mean, I could tell you who was on either side of me on the day that happened, but I couldn't tell you their real name. I couldn't tell you what where they're doing time or anything else. There's just this was a nickname kind of place. You got Psycho living next to you for a year, but I mean, that's kind of tough to look up Psycho. So the only person I really could have related with and talked to about this at any level was my cellmate. He's dead. He died a very similar death. They found him in his cell in Victorville, California. They didn't release any details exactly how he got unalived, but he got unalived. They don't like putting details in there. They would like people to believe that it was the end, that he did it to himself, but he wasn't that kind of cat. Kelly Gerling says, Linda, my brothers told the director not to worry about an urn because we were just going to keep dad in a Cheez-It box. It was his favorite snack. Sometimes humor is the only way to deal with pain. Kelly, it's funny that you say this. When my dad's dad passed, my grandfather died. One of my uncles, my uncle Bob, Scenic Bob, he kept people laughing for the entire funeral. I mean, one joke after another. Like we sat down and we were in the church and everybody started. You could see we were just all really going through it. And he leaned forward into all of the men that were sitting together and he said, "I hope you're not. No one's going to be pissed." The pianist had just started playing the organ, and he said, "But I asked her to play Twist and Shout." And it was literally the first thing that had been said when we sat down in the church. And then he just started cracking jokes, and he did it throughout the entire ceremony. We got in the car to drive over there, and he said, the only good news about today is Dad won't be driving this, this limo. He said, I love the man. He was the worst driver in the world. And we talked about how he really was an awful driver. You complained, he had this huge Cadillac. It was like 4 city blocks long, and he would start to go across the double yellow line, and you'd go, ah! Everyone would start screaming. He'd say, "I'm straightening out the road. It's got too many bends in it. Relax." But yeah, he was terrifying to ride with. He was a bad driver, but he made jokes about his driving, and it was just one after the other until the last person walked out. And by that point, I literally had been laughing. He made it fun, and then he collapsed on top of that casket. He dealt with it. He put it off for hours. We've been putting it off for the days before it too, but he dealt with it. Boy, did he deal with it. It was one of the most horrific scenes I've ever seen, honestly. I mean, he was hugging the box, and he is not someone that believes in the other side in any way. He just thinks that when you close your eyes, it's over. And my God, he just started crying. He was at least an octave higher in voice than I had ever heard. He's got a voice very much like the rest of the Scoville clan, with a kind of a deeper rumble kind of thing going on with his voice, and it was just really high and awful. He dealt with it. Dealt with it with a lot of humor. I'm a guy that cracks a lot of jokes. It's one of the ways that I've coped with things my entire life was through humor, and a lot of dark humor sometimes. And maybe that's just because I've been in a lot of dark situations. But Prayers for all of you that have experienced loss. My loss is not bigger than your loss. We all do loss differently, and that's okay. You know what? Loss is loss. And when you start, I'm telling you, when you start to quantify it in your head, when you start to think to yourself, no one has lost more than I have, then you need to tell somebody just how much you've lost. If you're sitting around and you're thinking about how much larger your loss is than anyone else's, it's because you haven't really gotten it all out. You need to. You need to sit down and you need to talk to people. And the great thing is, more than likely, you're going to be talking to people who have already experienced loss as well. So in the process of you healing, you're healing others. It's the absolute payout for saying, hey, I need help, is that you start this friggin' process of creating circles that go out from a ripple, right? And you create them and they create more of them. And good God, look around you, right? My little plan to come on and say, hey, I'm sober today. I haven't used, it's been this many days, and I'm going to come back to talk to you tomorrow, and hopefully I'm going to be sober then. That was the concept in the very beginning. I was just going to make a video every day and tell people, but people showed up and they left comments on the videos, right? And this just started out to be a small meeting as a concept, but 11,000 people and a half a freaking million, visits to the lifeboat later. There's a lot of people who have experienced a lot of loss, right? All of us. There's nobody here that hasn't. And it's nice to be around people who understand what you're going through. So if you just heard me say that and say, you don't understand what I'm going through, okay, tell us. Tell us. Talk about it. Yeah, Cosmos Christie, you're right. She said, if I could tell everybody my loss, I know there would be some with greater. There always is going to be. And you know what? The incredible thing is, what is that Viktor Frankl book? Somebody help me. The hell is the book by Viktor Frankl? Man's Search for Meaning, Man's Search for... Damn it. And my phone isn't here, so I can't even use the... Last thing my mom said to me was that she wanted me to take a cow with her. Wow, it's an odd last word. Christy, this is, there it is, right? There it is. Not to say my loss wasn't bad. It's been awful, but I know there are people going through worse, right? If everybody going through loss today can get to that place, that's healthy as hell. That's a very safe, I mean, nothing safe. It's a very healthy place to be, right? When you realize that what I went through is horrific, but there are people out there that have gone through and have been through worse. Man's Search for Meaning. Thank you, Martha. You see these people who go through the most horrific crap in the entire world, and they don't just get through it, right? They get through it and they take what happened to them, and the earth is a better place because of their suffering. Wow. Wow. You know why people like that do what they do? Because they'll go insane if they don't. Trust me. You have to, if you're Viktor Frankl, right? If it's a man's search for meaning, why do you write that book? Because it's his way of making sure that something beautiful could come out of something that effing ugly. If something deeming says pain is pain. A pet could be the only love a person may have known. I'd like to hope that they at least have that, because I'll tell you something, man. That's pretty good stuff. Honestly, you'd be lucky enough to find a woman that would love me the way that Squirrel does. I would be really, really, really lucky if I could find a woman that would put up with me as long as Squirrel has, much less longer than that. Peace Lady says, I lost my dad last year and I'm still mourning. A wound I have to learn to live with. Yeah, it's exactly right. Exactly right. You're not going to get over it. You're not going to get over it. There's none of that crap. You're going to learn to live with it. And this is this is another great example, right? This would be a perfect time for me to say, right? Hey, I know what you're going through. I lost my dad. I don't know what you're going through. I did lose my dad, right? Um, I did lose my dad. So in theory, I know what you're going through, right? But I don't. I don't know what your relationship was like with your dad. I just know that's loss and that's suffering and that hurts. That part I get. My dad was my best friend. He was the best man at my wedding. I loved my dad. He was such a huge part of my life, and I have not gotten over it. And he died years ago. I'm not going to get over it. I have definitely learned to live with it. And each year that happens, each year that as time goes on the anniversaries of his passing or on Father's Day or whatever, I don't. It doesn't rain all day on those days anymore. I miss him. It's sad. But on those days, we get together now and we talk and tell really funny stories about my old man. We tell stories that we never would have been able to tell in the beginning because we were still hurting too much. Now you can tell stories where, he wasn't perfect in the story. When someone first passes, it's like everything people say about him is, they turn him into a saint. But when he's been gone a few years and we can talk about him, some of the things that didn't make him a saint made him the perfect dad. And you can relive those. So I don't know what you're going through, but God, boy, do I know that losing your dad sucks. I can tell you that. It really does. Christy, I kind of like what Christy said. Christy Calla says, Plant Freak, our body protects us. If it shuts down your emotions, it's okay because one day when you're ready, you will feel it. Providing you're willing to deal with it. I agree with this. I really do. And I know that the body does this, right? Science has now done some pretty cool stuff. Oh, I love that, Bruce. I really do. I love that. Science is showing us there's something to this, right? The more that they research things like DID, where people disassociate, and you end up with what's people who disassociate end up with alter personalities, and very often this is caused, in my opinion, almost every time, if not every time, is caused by massive trauma going on. That the body protects the individual by creating an identity that takes on the abuse. Right? You see this in cases of horrific abuse on children. Oftentimes, they will create one identity that takes all the pain, so that there are other identities that don't have to deal with it. And that, as tough as that is, that's the body's attempt at keeping the organism alive and doing whatever it has to, because that's the only way it's going to work. But if that person ever wants to have, a happy existence or a life that's going to be, worth living, then they're going to have to deal with all of that trauma and all that pain. And fortunately, we're getting better at it. And by that, I mean talking about it and being willing to talk about it and opening up to professional care. As human beings, the stigma of getting mental health care, every generation, that stigma's smaller. Every generation, it's more accepted to say things about addiction or about, suffering and going to see seeking professional care. Bruce Osmond says, all those we have lost want us to live and to try to be happy. What a great comment, right? What a great comment. I work with someone who has who has been in combat multiple times. And this is something that we talk about all the time because he has vicious survival guilt. And he walked he walked through the door, so to speak. The first time we met virtually, I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, I have survival guilt. I mean, this is not something that was a foreign concept. He knew exactly what he was going through. But there was this sort of epiphany that I assure you I had nothing to do with. But through journaling, he came in one day and said, there was one person's name in particular. He said, it just occurred to me last night while I was journaling how pissed off he'd be that I'm not going after it, that I'm not living my life for two, so to speak. And yeah, I think that those who we have lost want us to live, and they want us to be happy. I think that is an absolute reality for me. Yeah, Miss R, I believe that. Miss R says, I taught myself repression as a child um, to deal with nightmares. I didn't understand what it was then. I think we all did this as kids to some degree, right? We all learned to hide our feelings as kids. If we didn't, we chances are wouldn't be here right now listening to me. I'm not that freaking entertaining. We're all here because we've all definitely been there. A homeless young man did not want to separate from a kitten he saved. I sent rapid response out to find the kitten and have it fostered. We made sure he had visitation. He stayed. Oh, wow. That's heavy. Sorry. Yeah, that's beautiful. That really was beautiful. He's 60 days sober and he's housed with the kitten. Are you kidding me? How freaking awesome is that? That's unconditional love. That's a beautiful thing, too. That's an absolutely beautiful thing. Hold 1 second. So, got to get professional counseling. If you're suffering through, come here, slow nut. If you're suffering through loss, and this is going on a year, 2 years, 3 years, you need to seek professional care. If it's my loved one, right? If it's somebody that I care about and they lose somebody near and dear to them, they lose a significant other, and I'm going to recommend that they go talk to professional help from Jump Street before anything does go bad, just so that there's somebody there to kind of hold their hand and go through the process of grieving and do it in such a way that gives you the best chance of success. We are all addicts, right? That makes it a little bit more difficult. Um, Professional counseling. Consider seeking professional counseling or therapy to address the emotional impact of loss and its connection to addiction. A trained therapist can provide guidance and coping strategies tailored to your individual situations. And if you're saying, man, there's no professional that can do nothing, you don't have any idea how bad this is. Okay, good. Go in and learn dialectic behavioral training, DBT. Go in and tell them, I don't want you doing anything. I just want the tools necessary because I don't think, trust me, DBT, if it's so bad you just can't do anything, that's what DBT is, right? The example I always like to give is that, like, if you get diagnosed with a terminal illness, right? If a doctor tells you that you got less than a year to live, you still got to do the kitty litter. You still got to get up in the morning and eat breakfast, and you still got to be you, right? Now, on a scale of the how bad is that? Yeah, that's the 10. But you can fall anywhere in between and still use the same techniques, right? Bad things are going on. We still got to get up and do what we do. We're suffering. We still got to get up and do what we do. Is it going here? Plant Freak says the lifeboat and I need a meeting. If you don't know what that is, guys, I need a meeting is another channel. Does very similar to what we do here, but they do it in a different way. And they have guests on a lot, and it's a really, really cool program. And if you haven't checked it out, you should go over there and check it out. If you're wielding a wrench, could you put a link up to I need a meeting for me? But Plant Freak says the lifeboat and I need a meeting have helped so much. Not even thinking of using talking instead. I was smoking pot every day, all day for 2 years, if not more. I haven't touched anything but nicotine since Tuesday. Good for you. Good for you. That's good stuff. It really is. Good stuff. Well done. Plant Freak, fantastic. And you know what? Do you have any idea how good it feels to be here and say, hey, Need a Meeting is a channel that does, very similar things to what we do here at the Lifeboat. You know what? There aren't enough channels to do what we do. There aren't. Miss Dragon does another great program. I feel really good about recommending as well. I'll tell you this, and I'm going to say this on every show for about the next 2 weeks, so that when this happens, I will say, you didn't hear this? I did it every day, twice a day for 2 weeks. I am going to be deleting out every single channel that I follow on YouTube. The reason I'm doing this, and I'm not going to do it until I make this announcement for a couple of weeks, but the reason that I'm doing it is I'm going to put up the channels that I follow, and I'm going to do it publicly, because I want people to see. Because if I put you up there, it's going to be the stamp of approval that basically you're a friend of the Lifeboat, and the content that you create is the same, in line with what we do here, so that people will see that and go, oh, I can go over there and get the same kind of peer support, because that's what we are. We are a peer support channel, peer to peer, so to speak, right? Cosmic Christie says, I need a meeting with Carol is a thing that helps my entire day. How cool is that? How cool is that? Hey, knock that off. Knock that off. Linda, knock that off. Linda says, I want to be with my family so bad, but I'm a coward and I can't do it. If what you are saying, Linda, is that you would like to be where your family is now, do me a favor and don't. I understand the sentiment completely. I understand why you would want to be with them. I will hearken back to the last thing that we had up there. That's not what they would want. It's not what honors them, right? Or their memory. It's just not. And that's hard. I know more than anything in the world. That's what you want, to be with your family. You're not a coward. That's not at all what you are. But I'll be really honest with you. That route, I'm sorry to anybody that's lost anybody this way. I really am. It's horrific. But that's the coward way out. I hate to do this, but I'm going to. You have the potential to do amazing things for so many people because of what you have gone through. What if Viktor Frankl decided that he wanted to be with his family? Do you know the number of lives that man's book has affected? Right? Honestly, I wish I could right now just go raise your hand if Viktor Frankl's book changed your life, because they would be going up all freaking over the place. If you've never read that book, read it. If you've never read Viktor Frankl, read Viktor Frankl. You say, how does somebody that goes through that much just not hate every single person on the planet, does not hate every time that he lives one more second on this planet? Talk about a person that had a justified and legit reason to punch his own ticket. Instead, he changed the world for the better in a really, really big freaking way. If your suffering is so exquisite that all you want to do is be on the other side, there's a reason. There's a reason. There is such an opportunity for you to do so much good. And you know what? You may think I'm kidding. There are people listening to this right now laughing hysterically because there are people that have had the opportunity to sit down with me one-on-one and have long conversations about where I am today, the things I do, and all of that. And I'll tell you something, man. If you told me where I was going to be 5 years ago, you told me that this is what I was going to be doing right now, I would have laughed hysterically. But if you had told me 10 years ago that this is what I would have been doing, there's no way on God's green earth you could have convinced me. I'll be really honest with you. There are as many days that, yeah, this is what I do now. The lifeboat is what I do. And it started out as this little thing, this big. I thought to myself, you know what? Everywhere I looked, people looked at me like I was a piece of trash. I just came out of prison. I did not want to relapse. That was about all that I knew, was that I didn't want to relapse. If you think I want to be doing this? Honestly, this was my way of coping with what I had been through, which, I mean, I went to prison, right? I did 13 years, give or take, away from my family. I saw death. I got the crap kicked out of me. I got pepper sprayed. I got beat. I got stabbed. Right? It was a rough 13 years. Nothing compared to what people here are going through. Really, nothing. Stitches and broken bones are nothing compared to loss, right? But I went through some rugged times, and I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't deal with it. It was more than I could deal with. This was an attempt at that, an attempt to just kind of cope. And I'll tell you something. All that's behind me. I don't need to cope with that anymore. Trust me, I got that put away. But I've come to realize that when I talk about the things that I've gone through, other people that listen to what I talk about end up helping other people. Like these ripples, they really do continue to go out, right? And I'll tell you something. There are people who came here today who shared what they've been through, who have a chance to be the world's biggest freaking ripple. If your pain from your loss is so exquisite that you cannot put it into words, if the pain from your loss is so exquisite that you're thinking of going to the other side, I got a suggestion. Send me an email and let's put it on the air. Let's talk about what you've been through so that your loss, as epic and tragic as it is, can do something fantastic for the lives of a lot of other people. That would be a beautiful thing. Like Viktor Frankl, right? If in the middle of the most disgusting, awful, hateful, venomous shitstorm that ever happened on planet Earth, if in the middle of that, something like the writings of Viktor Frankl, right, or Ken Boom can blossom out of that kind of hatred, good God, what can we do with our loss? You know what? We need way more time on this one, and I don't have it, sadly. This is Sunday, and I'm going to church. Linda Brookshire, you're going to end up with them. The fact that you say I would like to be them leads me to believe that you think that there is an afterlife, heaven and hell, and such. You will be with them. Don't do it like that. Right? In the middle of this unbelievable suffering and pain, something beautiful can blossom. And you say, well, is that going to help me? You know what? If you believe in the heaven and hell concept that you were just talking about, then you have to understand how much good can come from what you're going through. Shoot me an email if you would like your story to be told on the lifeboat. If you think that what you've been through is going to benefit other people, then let's get it out there, huh? Linda, hang in there. If you'd like to tell your story, please
email me at sober@myyahoo.com. I'm talking to everybody, not just Linda. If you want your story to be told on the boat, then send me a email, sober@myyahoo.com. All right. The cat has been in and out, so there's no cat in the basket. Have a great day. For those of you going to church, enjoy. The rest of you, I'll see you tonight, 5. Bye-bye.